This is lesson 8.5. This is the last lesson of chapter 8. We are going to be interpreting division with fractions. We're going to be using a couple different methods to use to solve this, and we also will be having to come up with actual story problems of our own that fit the numerical expression that they're showing. So, very important lesson for the chapter, as you will have several test questions relating to these three different methods. All right, so our first one, we're going to use the draw a diagram to solve. We've done this already in lesson 8.2. Elizabeth has 6 cups of raisin. She divides the raisins into 1/4 cup servings. How many servings does she have? Again, it's important to remember what we are actually dividing up. So we know that in 1 cup, we know there are 4 1/4 cups, because 4/4 would equal 1. And we know from our story problem that she has 6 cups of raisins. So we are going to be drawing our model to represent the 6 that we are dividing up, the 6 cups. So we'll just go ahead and draw our 6 rectangles. Again, model, it doesn't really matter whether you draw a rectangle or a circle, just whatever is easier for you to divide up. And then we will be breaking each of these 6 into 4 pieces. So we're going to draw our models into 4 pieces. And then we can either count the number in all of the 6 rectangles. We can say that 6 divided by the 1/4 equals, if we count all the way through here, we will come up with 24. Or the way we did it in 8.2 is we said there were 6 models. Each model has 4 pieces. So instead of just counting, we can multiply 6 times 4 to get the 24 servings. There are a few problems on your homework where it specifically states in the direction that you need to draw a diagram to solve. So this is an example of what you would do for those directions. The next example that is part of this lesson is a little newer to us, and this is called to write an equation to solve the problem. An equation is a mathematical problem that has an equal sign. In our case, we're not going to know what the answer is, so we're going to replace that answer with a variable. The variable is just a letter that represents what our answer would be. All right, so we have 4 friends. Again, remember, numbers can be in word form. 4 friends that share 1/4 of a gallon of orange juice. What fraction of a gallon of orange juice does each friend get? Again, we have to decide, are we splitting up the 4 friends into 1/4 pieces? I hope not. Or are we splitting the 1/4 of a gallon of orange juice between the 4 friends? And that is what we are doing. So the 1/4 has to become our dividend, and we're dividing that by our 4 friends. So our equation, the step 1, is to write the equation 1/4 divided by 4 would equal, in this case, n, or whatever variable you choose. Again, I would stay away from small letter O's because sometimes they can look like zeros, small letter L's because sometimes they can look like ones. Okay, choose a letter that we can definitely tell that you meant it to be a letter. All right, then we're going to go ahead and use the related multiplication, or the reciprocal that we learned in yesterday's lesson, to solve the equation. Remember, we're going to put 4. We have 4 divided, or 1/4 divided by 4 equals n. We're going to put that whole number over 1 and flip-flop the divisor, or use the reciprocal of the divisor. Again, we cannot use the reciprocal of the dividend. And then we can go ahead and solve for n. So n would actually equal 1 times 1, which is 1, and 4 times 4, which is 16. And double checking to make sure that is in simplest form, which it is. So our answer is each friend will get 1/16 of a gallon of orange juice. And the last part of your homework, or the third part I should say, it is telling you to write a story problem for the problem, or whatever problem they give you. Okay, so we're going to do an example for each of these. It does say to then draw a diagram to solve, but on your homework, it is not in the directions to actually have to draw the diagram for this, you writing the story problems. So that's optional. If you want to, you can, but this part this part of the homework will be optional. All right, so our first one, we're going to have 4 divided by 1/3. Again, the first number is the dividend. That's what we're splitting up. So we have to think of something that we would have 4 of, and then we can cut each of those 4 pieces into thirds. Okay, so they're giving us examples of, and obviously there's not one correct answer. There's multiple correct answers to this. They're giving us possible answers. We could take 4 sandwiches and cut them into thirds. We could take 4 feet of ribbon and cut it into thirds. We could take 4 pies and cut it into thirds. So we're going to think of it that way, and we're going to use, and then use the item we chose and divide it into thirds, and then finally to ask the question, ask how many thirds there are. So we're going to go ahead and use the pies. So we're going to say Susie has 4 blueberry pies. She wants to give each of her friends a 1/3 piece, a 1/3 of a pie. Okay, so we have our 4, that would be our dividend. We're cutting each of the pies up into the thirds. The question we need to ask then is how many friends will get 1/3 of a piece of pie? Okay, and then once you have written your story problem for the numerical expression that they give you, then we need to actually solve it. If it helps you to draw the diagram, you can, but it's not going to be required. You can use the reciprocal method that we talked about yesterday. You can use the relating the answer to multiplication. So I'm going to go ahead and use the reciprocal method. This is going to be 4/1. We're going to multiply that by using the reciprocal of 1/3, or flip-flopping the divisor. Our answer is going to be 4 times 3, and then 1 times 1. And again, any number that's over 1, we know that is the answer of the answer is just a whole number. So our answer would be that 12 friends, I should have left a little more room there, but 12 friends will each get a 1/3 size piece of pie. So you will work out a problem that fits the expression they're giving you. You will solve the problem, and then you will need to put in a correct label. Another example is where our dividend is the fraction. Okay? So this is what we're splitting up. So we have to choose and think of something. What would we have left half of yet? And then we want to split that up into so many pieces. Okay. All right, so we're going to choose an item. They give us some examples. We can say we have 1/2 of a pizza left. We have 1/2 of a yard of rope. We have 1/2 a gallon of milk. And in our case, we're going to divide it into 5. Okay, so what we are going to do for our story problem to represent 1/2 divided by 5 is we'll go ahead and use the 1/2 a gallon of milk. All right, so we're going to say Joe has 1/2 of a gallon of milk. And he wants to pour the milk into 5 cups equally. And then we're going to say how much will each cup hold, or how much of milk will each cup hold, how much of a gallon will each cup hold. All right, again, diagram's optional, but we're taking our fraction, we're dividing it by 5. Let me go ahead and write this over here a little farther so I have room for my label. So we're going to have our 1/2. I'm going to put my whole number over 1 and use the reciprocal and multiply by 5 over 1. So I'm going to take 1/2, multiply it by 1/5. Sorry, getting ahead of myself a little bit there. Then go ahead and multiply across. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 5 is 10. Making sure it's in simplest form. So our answer will be that there will be 1/10 of a gallon in each of the cups.